All right. Sorry about the delay there, guys. Still getting used to some of these controls on the new laptop. A little bit different. Windows 11 instead of Windows 10, so some of the advanced sound settings are in different places, and I've never had to do that before in some. So sometimes if you just unplug the microphone for the soundboard, stuff just starts working, and it doesn't make sense to me even. But I will figure it out. In the meantime, though, the most important thing is we got the audio up and running. So I apologize for the delay, but that was the reason for the delay. All right, so speaking of delay, we're going to let everybody get connected here. I'm going to bring it up on my end as well so that we can see comments, because that's really the only way you guys can talk to me, right? All right. Hello, Mitch. Good to have you. All right. All right, so what do we got for the After Schrock today? A lot of activity in cryptocurrencies. What's going on there? We're going to tell you about that coming up. The e-waste story that we didn't get to on the radio show, we're going to cover that one here for you. Blah, 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 blah. What else? I have it all written down. I should probably open up my notes here. Let's see. Oh, yeah, and then crazy stuff. Walmart, Costco, Home Depot are doing some nutso things to get inventory into their stores and bypass the supply chain so they're not competing with everybody else to get through that bottleneck of the supply chain. Companies like Walmart, for example, have their own trucking firm, so they can move their own freight by truck. They have to get it on the truck, though, which means they have to get it off the boat, and they don't have a shipping company that has ships and stuff. So interesting stuff there. So we got a lot going on. So, all right, where do you guys want me to start? Let's start off with where we left off on the radio show. That sounds reasonable. So one of the things that is kind of concern to us in the industry, if you will, or to Schrock anyway, is the amount of e-waste that's generated every year. Now, what is e-waste? E-waste is, E stands for electronic. It's electronic waste. Now, some things we can help with that. For example, computers. We recycle those for free at all the service centers. You can drop off a computer anytime. We remove and wipe the hard drive. Make sure your data doesn't go anywhere, and then we actually recycle it with Sadoff Recycling in La Vista. So we actually use a real recycler that is certified, so we know this stuff is not ending up in a landfill in Africa somewhere or floating in the ocean or anything stupid like that. It's actually getting recycled. It's really important to us. Lots of places say they recycle stuff, but not always. The second thing that you don't consider, though, as often is every time, like I'm buying a new dishwasher, I mentioned during the radio show. The dishwasher has electronic controls that are controlled, obviously, with a circuit board and a motherboard inside the dishwasher. So when you get rid of your dishwasher, there is e-waste in the dishwasher. So if you throw a refrigerator or a washer or a dryer or a dishwasher in the landfill, a component of that is the e-waste. And so we're at that point right now where a lot of the e-waste has shifted from computers and desktops and laptops to mobile devices, tablets, cell phones, things like that. It's estimated that every household in the United States has 11 mobile devices, tablets or cell phones, that are not in use right now. Either they're just not getting used or they're old. And when you got a new phone, you just stuck the old one in a drawer because you didn't really know what to do with it. Did everything get transferred? I don't really know. So basically, I wanted to take the opportunity to remind everybody that Schrock Innovations also recycles mobile devices. So you can bring in phones and tablets and stuff like that. Sadoff Recycling takes those as well. They recycle them just the same. But it allows us to keep them out of the landfill. So this does a couple things. Now, first of all, the stories that I was reading about this all framed it through carbon footprint. So if carbon footprint is something that you care about, we can... Right now, only 17% of e-waste is actually recycled. The rest of it goes into the landfill. So 17% is all that gets recycled. And every ton of e-waste that gets recycled, it's estimated to save 2 tons of carbon going into the environment. Because if you don't recycle it, you have to go mine the gold and mine the silver and mine the cadmium and get all the rare earths out of the ground, and all that mining activity causes a carbon footprint. Then there's the manufacturing process. So this could be one of those things. Maybe it's a ton of carbon, maybe it's 2 tons of carbon. I've never seen a ton of carbon before, but nevertheless, if that's something that you're concerned about, recycling e-waste is an excellent way to keep carbon out of the environment. Number 2, recycling e-waste is an excellent way to position the United States better to be independent of other countries for the components of making electronic devices. Everybody is so focused on onshoring manufacturing. We want, Intel's opening new fabrication plants in the United States. Samsung announced they're opening a new manufacturing facility, a fab in Texas. So there's a lot of new fabrication going on. Well, chips need silicon. Chips need gold. Chips need silver. Chips need all kinds of things. Chips need rare earth elements that we import mostly from China. So you can have all the manufacturing here all you want, but unless you have the raw materials, you got nothing. And so what ends up happening when you recycle stuff, right now it's paper. Nobody wants paper. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants to recycle it. The cost of recycling it is way higher than the cost of producing new paper. Most of it was being shipped to China because it was actually cheaper to put it on a boat and sail it halfway around the world to some other country that's just going to frickin' burn it anyway than it was to recycle it domestically. Now, with all the inflation and everything, maybe that math has changed, and that's what a lot of the recyclers do. Is they will accumulate paper like that, and they just bale it. They bale it like hay, and they stack it up, and they wait for the day to come when the paper is worth something. And when it is, they knock it down, they debale it, they recycle it, and they sell it for a profit. So when you're selling e-waste, obviously gold and silver is valuable. They're going to extract that, but some of the other stuff just isn't valuable right now. Like a lot of the gray metal and stuff like that, it's just not valuable. Copper is going up a lot. Copper's in a lot of the heat sinks and things. So the stuff that's not valuable, these companies just sit on that. For example, your printers. There's not a lot of electronics in a printer, right? It's mostly that great big plastic shell. What do they do with the plastics? There is literally zero market for recycled plastics. Plastic is so cheap to make that recycling it is so much more expensive that nobody does it. So what do we do when we recycle a laptop that has a plastic shell, for example? What happens to the shell? Well, they grind it up into like powder basically, and they use it to line the landfill. They make a plastic liner. They make a Ziploc bag to go in the landfill to keep stuff from leaking through into groundwater and into the soil around the landfill. So your recycled plastics are actually ground up and put to a secondary use that they would have to use new plastic for that otherwise. But because nobody wants this plastic, it's really cheap to get. You're just grinding it. You just grind it up. They probably do something else to it to make it all solidified or something. I don't know. But it's used to line the landfills. So as you recycle your old computers, desktops, laptops, cell phones, tablets, those materials are extracted from those devices and put to use again, meaning we don't have to import that stuff anymore. And those are American companies doing the recycling because we don't ship it overseas anymore. Because China said, we don't want your garbage anymore. Literally, they said, we don't want your trash anymore. We were shipping all of our trash to China, who just burns it anyway. So now, if you recycle everything, you can be a part of the solution instead of the problem. Now, at Schrock, we're really proud of the fact that we recycle more stuff every year than we produce by weight. It's not hard when you measure it by weight. You get a desktop from 1982. Oh, that's like 14 new computers. Oh, there we go. But, we keep it out of the landfill. We do a lot more than we produce, a lot. You may have seen, if you've been to the service centers, those great big rolling bins. They're like 4 feet wide, 4 foot by 3 foot, and they're like 4 feet tall. We fill one of those every single week in all 4 service centers and take it to the recycling facility. That's how much stuff gets dropped off. Cables, printers, anything that has to do with a computer, we recycle for free. Anything that's smartphone, all the chargers, adapters, cords, all that stuff, we recycle all of it for free. We don't take televisions. We don't take satellite dishes or VCRs or cordless phones or things like that. We will take anything computer related though. And that way you have a place you can go to take that stuff. It gets you into the service center. It shows you where we're at. So that maybe someday when you have a problem later, you're like, I know where that Schrock place is. See, there is some self-interest here. That's why we do it for free. Other places actually charge for this now. We'll recycle monitors as well, and all-in-one computers. There's a $15 charge for doing that, just because the recycling company charges us by weight. When we take those monitors and all-in-one computers in, there's a cost to having them recycled for us, and we want to cover that cost. But everything else is 100% free. So if you're one of these people out there that has 11 used devices sitting in your house right now that you're not using anymore, you could actually do a lot of good by recycling them. Drop them off anytime. We're happy to we'll wipe them and recycle them so that your data is safe, and then you'll be confident in your security. You'll have less junk in your house, and all those minerals and everything can get recycled and put to use in producing new electronics domestically here in the United States. If you add up the amount of e-waste that is now in landfills, it is heavier than the largest man-made object on the planet. We have 54.7 million tons of e-waste in landfills, which weighs more than the Great Wall of China. It's pretty crazy. So if you are at all concerned, and for Nebraska and Iowa especially, we have enough concerns about groundwater. That's where we get our water for the most part. We have enough concerns with farm runoff and things like that we want to make sure we protect that groundwater. So anytime we can keep this kind of nasty stuff out of the landfill, it's not going to be a problem probably in my lifetime because those liners are really good. It may not be a problem in your kid's lifetime, but eventually the liner's going to rupture, and eventually that stuff is going to get into the ground. So the best thing to do is just to keep it out of the landfill altogether whenever possible. All right, let me jump back over to comments here. So that was the story I meant to cover in the final segment of the program, but we had so many calls, and the calls were so good, I wanted to make sure we got to them all. Okay. Cheryl and Rich, good to have you. Video just got choppy. Ruh-roh. I'm not dropping any frames, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Yeah, I apologize, Mark, that it took a while for the After Schrock to come up. I was having some difficulty with some microphone settings, and you could have seen me but not heard me, but I didn't think you'd really enjoy that experience, so I had to monkey with things a bit. Do you recycle toll transponders and UMA telecom boxes? I don't know. I don't know what those are. I'm assuming there's something to do with telecom and toll booths. If it's an electronic device that you could pass off as a computer, my guys aren't inspecting them. They're not like, what is this thing? The rule of thumb here is devices that are more plastic than electronic actually cost us money to recycle. So it's a delicate balance. When we tell you you can drop everything off to recycle, some of the stuff we get charged for when we take it to Sadov, and some of it we get paid for. So the objective here is to have the stuff we're charged for and the stuff we're paid for equal out so we don't owe money. That's what we're trying to do. So we literally take everything. Some of the stuff, if you were to recycle it, they'd give you like $3. It's not worth your trip. But if we can collect 20, 30, 40 desktops together, but then throw it together with a bunch of cable modems or small plasticky things like mice and keyboards and printers and things, that stuff is more plastic. And like I said, the plastic you actually pay to get rid of because they just grind it up and use it for landfill liner. So we have to pay to get rid of plastics and monitors and all-in-ones and things like that, and we get paid for the actual circuit boards and electronics that we recycle. The objective is to have those two equal out to zero so that we can not have an expense for recycling, where we're just providing the service basically, and we're transporting it in the pickup trucks over to the Sadov and La Vista and dropping it off for them. That's the goal. So if it looks like it might be a computer, we're not going to give you too much of a hard time about it. The things that cost us money, though, are the small things, where it's a tiny little circuit board and 5 pounds of plastic. That's what ends up costing us money. I have a 2012 MacBook in a drawer. Yeah, that's hard to let those go when you pay so much for them. The video is extremely choppy and locking up. I think someone told you to try to restart, Aaron, and see if that helps. So hopefully it's not the experience for everybody. 9 phones, 3 desktop computers, 2 laptops. Yeah, I need to recycle that junk. It's cluttering my workshop. Paul, you're going to create a data center with that stuff. Let's see. Yes, cinnamon rolls sound really good, actually. Compact computers finally have a use. Landfill liners. Most of the compact computers were actually metal back in the day. The front faceplates were all plastic, but the bodies were all steel. They were rolled steel. So rolled steel has got a value, I think, but I don't know what they pay for rolled steel. Whatever they pay for, like, bean cans and stuff, I don't know. UMA's a VoIP system. Oh yeah, just drop that stuff off, Mark. You'll be good to go. Alrighty. Interesting item. Take a look at VIX. It shows what people think about the future of investing. Yeah, the fear index. The VIX is a fear index. If people are afraid, there's a saying that the stock market climbs the wall of worry. So, in other words, let's say, and I was going to talk about this with Bitcoin, so this kind of rolls together. Let's say you've got an Omicron variant that is causing cases around the world, and it's spreading. And all of a sudden, governments are imposing lockdowns on countries so that you can't come into our country from your country because you got the Omicron there. You're infected. Shutting down supply trade lines, making travel difficult, hurting tourism. All of a sudden, you'll see the stock market freak out, and all of your stay-at-home stocks are going to pump up, and all the getting-out stocks are going to go down. People are going to get afraid, and they're going to sell things. They're going to sell their Bitcoin. They're going to sell, because one of the good things lately that's been pushing up the price of Bitcoin is all the institutional investment. We have lifelong people who manage money and manage wealth for a living finally realizing that Bitcoin is a measure of wealth. It has a value, and they're buying it. The problem is they treat it like a stock. They expect it to behave the same way, whereas it's not a fiat currency. It's not a stock with a 40-time multiple. It doesn't behave the same way. It has no profits. It doesn't behave the same way. Like when I say profits, it's not a company generating a return for investors. It's a store of value. It's an inflation-resistant store of value. So what ends up happening is when you have a lot of institutional people into Bitcoin and everything is going down and you know the price of Bitcoin is going to go down, what does the institutional investor do? They sell their Bitcoin because they expect they can buy it back later at a lower price. And they're right. It was kind of funny. There's lots of posts online about there's a Black Friday sale on Bitcoin. It's 20% down off its highs. You should buy in now. And I don't think it's going to hit the $95,000 here in the next 2 days that Plan B predicted for the end of November. Logarithmically over in the long run, it'll probably not be a miss. But in the short term, they had 3 months in a row where they boom, boom, boom. They hit the price on the button. Well, maybe there was a Bitcoin options futures expiry going on. And basically, a lot of people made a lot of money if it stayed under 60,000. So it got monkey hammered under 60,000 by institutional people and by whales to keep it low so that people would make their money on the expiring of the options, basically. So, okay, that's done now. It happened on Friday. The Omicron thing was not expected. It was kind of a black swan, if you want to compare it to a stock term. And so, yeah, everything went down. But we've seen this movie before, boys and girls. As a wise person once told me, play the movie through to the end. What happens? Everybody freaks out. Everybody sells because everybody expects that they're going to lose money if they don't. When everybody sells, the price goes down. If you have cash, you can buy at a discount. Because when everybody figures out that the cases coming out of South Africa are not that intense, they're muscle aches, or headache and fever, and that's pretty much it. That yes, it spreads rapidly as all get out, but it's nowhere near as intense as the original COVID virus was. At least that's what we're hearing out of South Africa. Now, I will preface this: South Africa does have a vested interest in this narrative, because if it's not so intense, maybe those travel restrictions aren't necessary. You see, so there could be some self-interest there. I'm the first person to admit that, but the world will continue to spin. People will get sick. Hopefully nobody dies, but people will get sick. People will get better. People will build natural immunities. There will be probably another booster that you can get for a vaccine if that's your thing. The world keeps spinning. Guess what's going to happen once everybody gets used to Omicron? The same thing that happened when everybody got used to Delta. The same thing that happened when everybody got used to COVID-19. It went back up to where it was before. Because there's just too much money floating around. There's so much money sloshing in the bowl, it's impossible. You could turn the bowl upside down and then turn it upside right again, and a lot of that punch is going to go right back into the bowl. Because there's just so much of it right now. There's nowhere else to go. You're going to put it in a bond? You're going to put it in a savings account? Maybe you got a money market. Put it there. That's fine. There's just nowhere else to go. It's going to end up back in stocks. So if you're going to take your financial advice from the computer repair guy, you deserve what you get. But my unofficial, completely unlicensed, and unsolicited investment advice is, if you sold, you better buy back in quick while it's lower, because it's not going to stay low. This is not COVID-19 all over again. This is not lockdowns and, Now the question is, I'm talking to you about stuff that I have read that is supposedly fact. If any of that information I've received is not correct, for example, if South Africa is underplaying, is downplaying the severity of these cases because they don't want travel bans, that changes things. But even if it's the original COVID-19 Satan himself incarnate, things went back to normal. Well, things went back up. The stock market went back up. So if you're talking about investing, yeah, the VIX is off the charts. People are terrified right now. And when people get terrified, they make stupid decisions. And professional money managers watch people make stupid decisions and then scoop up all the stuff they sold at a discount later on and then watch it go back up, and that's why they make the big bucks. I'm just saying, if you've got crypto, yeah, it's down. It was a hard week to watch your crypto this week. Because it just felt like you got punched, and as soon as it started to recover, get punched again and punched again. And oh my gosh, it's hard. Don't sell your crypto. First of all, you have to understand why you're into crypto in the first place. If you are into crypto, you have to understand why you're there. If you're into crypto because you want to make a lot of dollars, then yeah, you should have sold at the top and bought at the bottom. That's buy high or buy low, sell high. That's making dollars, right? If you're into crypto because you think that it's going to appreciate in value over time, significantly appreciate. We're talking like $1 million per coin club by 2025 kind of appreciation. Then you should never sell ever. Because even losing a fraction of a Bitcoin, even a Satoshi, if it goes up to $1 million, is worth a lot of money. So you just want to hold on to that. You want to forget you have it. It's going to be like that $20 that you put in your coat last winter when you put the coats away so that you would find something to make you happy next winter. That's something you just need to forget about. Now, the other people out there are the people who trade to increase their level of crypto. They don't care what the dollar value is, what the dollar denomination is. This is why I love liquidity mining. Liquidity mining is basically when people go on exchanges and buy and sell their coins, they pay a fee, right? Well, I am providing capital to the exchange so that they can have the coins on hand to do the buying and the selling, and I get a piece of the fee. So I get a piece of every fee that the traders pay. So I don't really care what the price of the coin is. Whether it goes up, down, sideways, forever, I don't care as long as there's trading happening, right? Because if there's trading happening, I'm making money. Well, I have to tell you, when the price of the cryptos went down, guess what happened to my liquidity mining? The value of the coins did go down a little bit, so the value of my entire liquidity account dropped maybe 3, 4, 5%, something like that. But the trading stopped. The trading, well, it didn't stop. I'd say it was a 75% decline in the trades. People just aren't trading because the majority of people who are into crypto genuinely believe it will be worth tomorrow than it is worth more tomorrow than today. So they're not selling. In fact, they're buying because it's on sale. So there you go. I mean, that's the crypto report for the week. Now, there was a reason I went into this. Now I can't even think of. There was a segue. Somebody asked a question. Oh, VIX. Yeah, that was the VIX question. You saw the same thing in stocks this week. You saw the same thing in everything this week. Everything got monkey hammered just because new variant, scary variant. Now I was reading about this variant 2 or 3 days ago, before all that hit the news. But then the thing that concerns me though is, if it's really something to be concerned about, there's a difference between concern and panic. And I'm a little afraid that the media is going to fan this for ratings and inflame a panic among at least a percentage of the population. And then we're masking up again. We're doing all these things again. And it gets everybody worked up, keyed up, afraid to go to Christmas. We don't want to get Omicron at Christmas. We don't want to kill Grandma with the Omicron. Notice they skipped the XI Greek letter. I wonder why they did that. Why did they skip XI? I went straight to Omicron. I don't know my Greek alphabet. Maybe it was out of order in my head. I'm sure it's on me. Wonder. All right. Question. Generally, how many monitors can you daisy chain off a single DSP? I have a Samsung Galaxy Odyssey G9 and 2 G5s for cyber layer that I've always wanted to use HDMI. DSP. I'm sure that's an acronym for something that I should know, but for some reason I am drawing a blank on what DSP is. Digital signal processing. Takes real-world signals like voice, audio, temperature, pressure, and then mathematically manipulates them. Is a processor dedicated to number crunching digital sounds like audio? So my guess is you're thinking about using these to push a monitor. So I honestly don't know how many monitors you can daisy chain off of a phone. I know that there are adapters to allow you to do that. I've only seen one. That's all I've ever done is one. Especially you can cast and things like that wirelessly, but like the Schrock tablets we used to sell had a port for HDMI on the side. You could literally cable them up to an HDMI port on a TV. So one for sure. But I will be the first to admit that that is not an area where I have a lot of expertise myself, personally. Alrighty. How about home electronics like DVD players? You know, we try not to be jerks about it. If you're bringing a truckload of recycle or a trunk load of recycles and you say, hey, will you take all this stuff? And the guys see DVD players and stuff in there, they'll bring it in. The things that really kind of irk me is when the guys take a 42-inch rear projection television in a solid oak case. I don't think Sadoff takes oak. What are you going to do with this thing? Or they take like a stereo that's in a wooden case, and like a wooden enclosure, like an old 70s stereo in a wooden enclosure or a bamboo enclosure. That stuff kind of irks me a little because that we have to literally break it to recycle it. We have to like take the wood off of it and everything, and it's a lot of labor, which labor is expensive. So that like I said, we're trying to keep it at zero here. Do a good turn, do what's right for the ecology, while not losing a ton of money doing it. So we'll spend a little bit. We invest some time and some fuel and trucks and stuff like that, but yeah, it's not the main thing we do. So yeah, if you have a DVD player or something like that, or a cordless cell phone, or a cordless phone from your house, and you threw it in with a bunch of computer stuff, the guys aren't going to like nitpick it and put it back in your trunk. I need help with my maintenance checkup. I live out of town and can't come in until January. I called the gentleman, was polite, and told me that they couldn't do a maintenance checkup over Schrock Desk. All right, so there are pieces of the maintenance checkup we can do over Schrock Desk, but there are also pieces that we can't. We have done, I'll call it a pseudo maintenance checkup for people over the Schrock Desk before. Over the Schrock Desk, we can't test your power supply, which is hugely important. That's the main way we find power supply failures before they blow up your entire computer. We can't blow the dust and stuff out of the fan radiator, which controls how much heat gets lifted off the computer's brain. If that gets too clogged, your computer will slow down to lower the heat levels. We can't do that. We can't test the USB ports. We can't test the video outputs. We can't do a lot of testing that we need to have hands-on for. You live out of town and can't come in until January. So the next question then is, I'm assuming, Deborah, I don't know how far out of town you live, but if it's within 30 miles of a service center, we do offer free pickup and free drop-off within 30 miles of a Schrock Innovation Service Center. We have one in Lincoln, we have one in Omaha, we have one in Papillion, and one in Des Moines. So unless you're in that little weird area between Des Moines and Omaha where we don't pick up, we have pretty good coverage around the area to come pick it up for you. So I'm trying to think if there's any other way we could do this. But the other thing is, if you were going to be coming into town, Deborah, to do something, if you can get it into us right at 10 in the morning and you tell us, hey, I'm only in town for the day, maybe I'll call ahead the day before, make sure we get it in. We can turn them in a day if we really, really push hard. It depends on a lot of factors, but if we know that you're waiting on it, we'll try to turn it in that same day for you. Maybe I was thinking of Packard Bell. Yeah, Packard Bell computers, that brings back memories. I have a Sony PDA and an HP in a drawer. Yep. Video is nominal. Come on. Here. All right. That's good, I think, right? It still says I'm dropping no frames, so it's got to be the internet connection. I'm on wireless in here again today. The wired still isn't working. Good audio. Sorry to report late. Rushing to get our new Corgi puppy. Cool, Winston. New puppy for Winston. Good video here on Android using cell data. Cool. The good thing is a barrel of oil went down $10. Everything went down. Everything sold because guess what? If everything's going to shut down again, we don't need the oil. We don't need the power. We don't need this. We don't need that. We're going to stay at home and spin on our Pelotons all day long. But I really, 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 really hope that things don't shut down again. Really hope. I'm not sure that did any good the first time around, honestly. All right. Speaking of crypto, thoughts on the Ripple lawsuit? The concept seems pretty cool. I'm not sure the SEC can do. This is going to be Paul going forward into the future. There's two ways that crypto is going to go. Way number one, the SEC doesn't know what the hell they're doing, and they're trying to regulate cryptocurrencies as a security when cryptos are a completely different asset class. So it's like saying, I have bonds, I'm going to regulate them like stocks. It doesn't work. Or I have stocks, I'm going to regulate them like bonds. It doesn't work. You have crypto, you need to regulate it as crypto, which means we need a new set of laws, we need a new asset class defined, and this is just going to take time and then work its way through the courts, and that's how it's going to happen. And so Ripple, if they win, Ripple's going to be worth a lot of money. If they lose, they're going to really muddy the waters of what is acceptable law for cryptocurrencies. So here's the challenge. There's two ways that crypto is going to go long term. Way number one, crypto is going to replace the US dollar. Something's going to replace the US dollar eventually. Now, when I say eventually, it could be another 200 years, but eventually. If we keep doing what we're doing now, printing buttloads of money, spending it on stupid crap that doesn't produce anything, we're going to lose world reserve currency status, rightfully so. Did it to ourselves. Shot yourselves in the foot. That's rightfully so. We have so much debt building that the only way we can get rid of it as a country is to inflate our way out of it. Inflation. Darn, it's certainly unfortunate. I'm not suggesting the inflation is intentional. Like somebody said, let's cause a supply chain crunch to cause the price of everything to go up. Because now they're saying it's going to be 2023 until we see price relief, where the prices come back down. And I'm just going to say first off here, guys, once consumers are used to paying the prices that we're paying right now, forget future increases. Once you're used to paying what you pay right now, it ain't going back down. Once those portion sizes change in the boxes, they aren't going back up, not for the same price. Do you see where I'm going with this? Once we get used to this and it's the new normal, this is what it will be. Cereal boxes were huge when I was a kid. Holy cow. You could go to like the big stores, you could get the big bag of like Happy O's, and it was like a 4-gallon bag of Cheerios, basically. I mean, it was insane. You could buy huge amounts of food for not a lot of money. Now everything's getting smaller and it's getting more expensive, and that hits poor people a lot harder than it hits people with means. Yeah, I can't tell you that story because people are watching that will know what they got for Christmas then. I had a funny story in my head, but I can't share it with you because I'll be giving away someone's Christmas present. But anyway, the second way that this could go is governments will do everything they can to crush crypto, to keep it from gaining dominance. One main reason for that, crypto can't be seized. Crypto doesn't require a bank. You can do it without a bank. Crypto can be anonymous, relatively so, if you do it right. Most people don't. Yeah, there's no reporting. You can't impose reporting requirements. All crypto transactions over $10,000 need to be reported to the IRS. There's no one running Bitcoin that can report it to the IRS. So you have to self-report. And if you're a bad guy, what, you're going to self-report because you're going to show up for your court date after you crossed over illegally? Yeah, that's going to happen. It's the same thing. So the government can't really control it, so they're going to do everything they can do to try to crush it. Now, the weird thing is there are camps on both sides right now. Hillary Clinton was warning this week that Bitcoin is going, if we don't stop Bitcoin, it's going to dethrone the dollar. Some people say that China stopped Bitcoin in China, and one camp says it's the worst decision they ever made because they boxed themselves out of an entire industry that's going to revolutionize finance as we know it, and China will be left in the dust. The other camp says China is insulating their economy from the largest bubble that's ever been spun of tulip bulbs you've ever seen. There is a little tulip bulb craziness in the altcoins, I will give you that. Now, so Hillary Clinton's warning that Bitcoin needs to be stomped on. Look what's happening in El Salvador. El Salvador made Bitcoin a national currency alongside the US dollar. So you can have either the US dollar as a national currency there and Bitcoin. They gave everyone in the country a Bitcoin wallet. Every time Bitcoin goes down, El Salvador buys more Bitcoin and adds it to their national Bitcoin repository. They just this week announced that they are going to issue bonds for the first time denominated in Bitcoin instead of US dollars. The International Monetary Fund came out and said that they disagreed that such action would be taken, that the ecosystem is not mature enough for this yet. This is how it gets mature, by the way. You do it for the first. It's got to be a first time for everything, right? In other words, the IMF doesn't like this, and they're quietly sending a message to El Salvador that if you do this, you may have trouble getting the next IMF loan that you need. So in dollars, you may want to be careful. What El Salvador is saying is by 2025, if this thing goes to $1 million, we will be the richest country on the planet. El Salvador is saying if our people choose to hold Bitcoin instead of dollars, which they are choosing in many cases, that says something about the dollar more than it says something about Bitcoin. People believe that the dollar will be worth less tomorrow than it is today. That it will take more dollars to purchase the same thing you could purchase today with fewer dollars in the future. They believe that the US dollar is going to inflate. Bitcoin, by its very nature, can't be inflated. Literally, it cannot be done. In fact, if anything, it deflates. Because every few years, the supply of Bitcoin coming into the ecosystem gets cut in half. It's called the halvenings. The miners get paid half as much. And let's say Grandma has a Bitcoin wallet. And let's say Grandma passes away. But Grandma didn't tell anyone the private key for her password for her Bitcoin wallet. What happens to Grandma's Bitcoin? This is the school of hard knocks, boys and girls. If you don't have the password, you ain't getting the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin will stay in that wallet forever and never be touched until the end of time or Jesus comes back or whatever is first. Just how it is. It's real money with real responsibility. Like back in the day when they had to run the payroll on the train to the local bank where the sheriff defended it in the little one-horse mining town. It's like that. And so there are advantages and disadvantages, but this bond that El Salvador is selling in Bitcoin, because it's the first and because it has crypto attached to it, it is going to be very oversubscribed. It is going to be a wild, smash, bang success of an auction. Now, will the second one be? Who knows? But denominated in Bitcoin, so in other words, you're going to buy a bond denominated in Bitcoin. What that means is the bond, let's say the bond is one Bitcoin in value. So El Salvador is saying we're going to give you one Bitcoin in value back 30 years later. What do you think the price of Bitcoin is going to be as measured in US dollars 30 years from now? Even if everything stayed exactly the same as it was now and they just inflated at the same rate in price. In other words, the dollar got less valuable, so, in other words, the price of Bitcoin went up in comparison. If it went at the same rate together, well, 30 years ago, a gallon of gas was 95 cents. So you could make an argument that we've had 200% inflation in 30 years. So that Bitcoin could be worth 200% more in 30 years than it is today. Not because Bitcoin appreciated in value or did anything special. It's just because Bitcoin preserved its purchasing power. You can buy the same number of things that you can buy with a Bitcoin. A lot of times people who are silver and gold stackers will say, back in the day, a man worked one day, and for one day's wage, he received 1 ounce of silver. And for 20 ounces of silver, a man could buy a suit. And 20 ounces of silver was 1 gold ounce. So for 1 ounce of gold, you could buy a suit. Which, today, if you look at it, a nice suit. Now, I'm not talking about like an Armani here, but a nice suit, tie, shirt, the whole trimmings, Couple grand, $1,800, you could get away with that. So that still kind of holds, right? Gold has maintained its purchasing power for the most part. Now, Bitcoin, will it do the same? Who knows? But if you can get a 200% return over 30 years, are you going to get that in a dollar-denominated bond? Or are you going to buy that bond measured in dollars? So let's say it's a $1,000 bond that you're going to buy for 30 years. 30 years from now, we guarantee we're going to give you your $1,000 back plus 2% interest over 30 years. Isn't that impressive? But there's going to be a 200% rate of inflation cumulatively. 2% over 2% over 2% year after year after year. It compounds. Which bond would you rather have? This is what's freaking governments out. That's what's freaking Hillary Clinton out. Because if the U.S. government loses control of the reserve world, of the reserve currency, and suddenly oil is measured in Bitcoin and bonds are measured in Bitcoin instead of dollars, and each individual country can decide whether they're going to launch these financial instruments on their own? Are you kidding me? And then we don't have to guess how much gold is in Russia's vault, or we don't have to audit Fort Knox to see if we actually have gold or it's just fake. We can just look at the blockchain and we can see how much Bitcoin El Salvador has in its wallet. It's public for everyone to see. Isn't that phenomenal? Doesn't that... It's like you can plan for the future. You can save. You can pass money to your children. It's like the way it used to be before everything got debased. I'm just saying, guys, I'm not advocating or rooting for the dethroning of the dollar, because that would be catastrophic for the United States of America. And I'm an American, and I love America, and I don't want to see catastrophic things happen in America. But I do want to see America right her ways, and I want to see her behave responsibly with money. Now, I also think that's an unrealistic ask given the way our politics work, which is why I believe it's inevitable that eventually we will shoot ourselves in the foot and lose that status. Now the question is, will we buy a lot of Bitcoin before we do it, just like El Salvador? Or will we be seeking a bond from them for a loan? I don't know. Alrighty. The amount released from the strategic reserve is enough to run the U.S. for 3 days. That's true. The amount of oil they released was enough to run it for 3 days. But let me tell you a story, folks. We are not the only country on the planet with a strategic reserve. It appears the pandemic has not only caused a spike in the price of oil, but it has also caused a spike in another commodity that we use regularly. You may underestimate the amount of this that you use. But if you like maple syrup, there's a shortage right now, and the price is going up fast. And do you know that Canada produces 80% of the world's maple syrup? I had no idea. Makes sense, though. Maple leaf, all their coins and their flags and stuff. Makes sense. Canada actually has a strategic reserve of maple syrup. I'm not making this up, guys. They have a strategic reserve of maple syrup to deal with situations like this. And in response to the increasing price of maple syrup and the declining availability of maple syrup around the world, they are releasing 50 million pounds of maple syrup from their reserves so that you can enjoy maple syrup with your pancakes or waffles. Because when it comes right down to it, the best way to fight inflation, too much money chasing too few goods, well, let's get the goods up, right? Let's get the stuff on the shelves. More goods. Supply side economics. And there you go. All of a sudden, it'll be interesting to see who is more impactful. Will the price of oil go down because of the strategic reserve being released from the United States, a 3-day supply in oil? Or will the price of maple syrup go down from a 50 million pound release of maple? I didn't know they measured maple syrup in pounds. I think it measured in like fluid, like gallons. But it's supposed to syrup. You want to measure it by weight, I guess? I don't know. So anyway, we'll see what the price goes down first. But I'm waiting for the press conference where Omicron has pushed the price of oil down $10 a barrel shortly after they did a strategic reserve release. Guess what's going to happen? Yeah, well, good thing we did that reserve release. It caused the price of oil is down significantly since we did that release. Aren't we smart? You know, politics, fun stuff. The people that make the most money buying and selling assets are doing it without emotions in the equation. Well, there's emotions, glee, greed, Um, Outright disgust for idiots that are selling. I mean, people have emotions when they do this, but it's like taking candy from a baby. People get scared. People sell. Now, there is a reason. You can sell your stuff, and then buy back lower and have more. People do that all the time. But when you're like, oh man, I just bought this Ethereum. I spent $500 on it because Thor told me to on the After Schrock, and he told me not to take financial advice from a radio guy. I didn't listen to him, and then all of a sudden now I only have $400. I lost $100. This is for the birds. I can't afford it. I'm going to sell and take my $400 and take my loss. And then you know what's going to happen? The second you sell, 24 hours later, it'll be $200 higher than when you bought it. And you'll be like, I never win. I can never win. It always goes up. It always goes down. But you know how you win? Diamond hands, baby. Just hold it. You don't have to do anything. Just hold it. Let me give you an example. In 2017, I had an employee named Kevin who told me about this new, we called it a shit coin, but it's a crypto coin. Called Ethereum, and its use case, it's going to, this and that, it'll power all these ecosystems, and there's all these woohoo, pie in the sky garbage, but you can mine it with a graphics card, Thor. You don't need these high-priced ASIC miners. You can mine it with a graphics card. And he came up with this idea. We had a service center with 3,000 square feet. We had a big area that wasn't being used, and we had a big shelf there, wooden shelf. Wooden shelves on a metal shelf. And we could literally mount graphics cards on these shelves, put big fans in front of them, and in the wintertime, we'd use it to heat the whole service center. We never, in fact, MUD called us and said, we should probably just disconnect your meter because you haven't used gas in 2 years. And so we said, we had 2 bays. We thought it was just the one that wasn't hooked up. So sure, turn it off. And then when we moved out of that space in the winter to the new Papillion Shop location, we took those miners, those graphics cards down. It got cold. And we're like, turn the heat on. And the heat didn't work. We're like, yeah, Quantum, you better get on that and turn on the heat over here. There's no gas service. Sorry, we didn't need it. But we had 42 graphics cards at one point, earning Ethereum. And the deal was that I would provide the power and the space. Kevin would provide the management. He would deal with it because I didn't have time to deal with it. And then we had a couple employees that wanted in, so they chipped in for some graphics cards. And we made like a little cabal, and we mined Ethereum, right? Well, my share of the Ethereum that I got from that year of mining was 7 Ether, right? At the time, Ethereum was a couple $100 a coin, so $1,400 for a year's work wasn't really ringing my bell. I had it in an account. I was going to sell it. Was waiting for it to maybe go up to 300. Life happened, and I forgot about it. Completely forgot about it. Until 2021, when I happened to say, I wonder if there's anything in that old Bittrex account, like a scrap of Bitcoin or something. Back then, Bitcoin was only worth like 10 or 20,000. So sometimes you get tiny amounts of Bitcoin that you can't move from the wallet because it's more expensive to move the coin than it's worth, and so you'd actually lose it by moving it. So you just leave it there and wait for Bitcoin to go to $1 million, and then all of a sudden it's like $200, and then you can move it. So I went to go check that Bittrex account to see if there's any scraps I would move around and put into interest-bearing accounts over at BlockFi. And I log into Bittrex, and it says, your account value is $21,000. And I'm like, what? And my wife's like, only you, Thor. Some people find like $20 in their coat that they put away last winter. Some people find change in the couch cushions. You get on your computer and find $21,000 that you forgot you had? Thor. I'm like, I wasn't 21,000 at the time. Yeah. That's the power of crypto. Woohoo! Now Ethereum, literally, a lot of those pipe dreams came true. Ethereum powers the entire distributed finance system. And last month, more Ethereum was burnt for the first time than was created. It's crazy. Crazy stuff. The different symbols by your names, let me see. Facebook badges. There's a diamond, and that means you're a top fan, Mark. That's what yours means. Brad's got one that says he's an anniversary follower. Having a badge like this tells people he's followed us for over a year. So that's why he gets that one. Ronald gets a flag. He's a milestone follower. I'm not sure what that means. If you have any military or veteran family members or friends who are veterans, have them do a search on the Social Security website for military retired benefits. Turns out the SSA will adjust your benefits if you were in the military for a certain period. Oh, good point. Thank you. It's your NSA file marker. Yeah, Mark. That's what the little symbols mean. Let's see. Yep. And then for some reason, Brad's badge there is in Spanish. I don't know why. The media has already turned Omicron into a panic. Yeah, I know that era. I knew that XI was the Chinese president's name. I was being kind of tongue-in-cheek there a little bit. All right. Oh, DSP, you meant DisplayPort. I'm not sure that there's a way to do a DisplayPort adapter from a mobile phone. I know you can do HDMI. I don't know if there's... You could probably do it through adapters and converters and things, but I don't know that there's just a way to cable it up like that. But again, my knowledge in that area is weak, I will admit. Good use for used cooking oil. Use it to start your outdoor fire pit. Great for starting the fire, and it smells good too. It smells like French fries. Alrighty. How about $1 trillion coin? Can't believe they're thinking about that again. Well, they think about it. I mean, at that point, if they do the $1 trillion coin thing, guys, at that point, you just know you're living in the loony bin, right? Go buy the farm in Montana, because it's time. It's time. The $1 trillion coins are hitting the fan. It's time. If you're going to mint one, why not mint 2 or 3 and just get it over with, right? Pay off the whole national debt. Why not? Alrighty. The dollar will be worth less. Democrats and Biden are... It's not just Democrats and Biden, though. The dollar... Inflation has been around. Inflation is a monetary theory. And that's the one that the Fed subscribes to, is having controlled inflation. So, in other words, it's a 2% annual tax on you that compounds annually. And as long as you're getting a 4% annual increase that compounds annually in pay, well, what's 2%? But it makes 2% compounded over 30 years is 200%, roughly. So, as we noticed in gas prices, it was measured in gas prices. So, if that's the case, if the government can make their debt 200% cheaper to pay off over a 30-year period, I'm just saying. I'm thinking I'm a smart politician now. Yeah. The maple syrup can only run 3 Waffle Houses for a week in Arkansas. That's awesome. See, and that's the kind of thing we need right there. That's the humor we need in life. Oh, golly. I'm going to laugh at that one. I might have to go to Le Peep for breakfast after the After Schrock. Yep. Let's see. I have an HDMI to USB-C cord that can stream phone. Yeah, you can do that. HDMI to USB-C works just fine. All right, let me see. Walmart, Costco, Home Depot are doing some drastic things to get around the supply chain problems. Wall Street Journal reported last week that Walmart, Costco, and Home Depot are literally chartering their own cargo ships and purposefully sailing them to whatever port on the United States is least busy, regardless of how long it takes to get there. Because it's taking 80 days to ship across the Pacific right now. It's about double the normal time. Usually it's actually 20 to 30 days, so 80 is more than double. But we've done it, so we know. But they're sailing all the way around. They're going through the Panama Canal and coming up into Florida and Texas on the East Coast. Excuse me. To get their containers offloaded so that they can get their products to their store shelves. Incredibly expensive to do. When's the last time you've chartered a cargo ship? When's the last time you chartered a bus? Hell, when's the last time you rented a car? You know, it's like, imagine how much money this is costing them. And, you know, Walmart, Amazon, they've got their own trucking, their own internally owned trucking companies. So, yeah, once that freight gets offloaded, they can move it on their own trucks just fine. All right. So, last call for questions, guys. Going to have to wrap it up here. But I wanted to make sure we covered everything that I promised you I would cover, and that anything that popped up gets covered here as well. Is it possible to upgrade a computer by replacing motherboard and processor and not have to reinstall Windows programs and data? Possible, yes. Problematic, yes. So the thing, if you're going to do this, Paul, is you want to stay in the same processor class. So if you have an Intel processor, you want to stay with an Intel processor. If you have an AMD processor, you want to stay with an AMD processor. If you switch processors, I guarantee you you're going to have nightmare problems. Number 2, if you can stay... Oh, wow. Sorry, guys, I didn't sleep a lot last night. I've got a bad case of the yawns. If you can stay with the same video chipset or a similar one, so if you have an NVIDIA video chipset, try to stay with another NVIDIA chipset. If you have an ATI chipset, stay with an ATI or an AMD chipset. Do what you can do to minimize the change, and you'll be better off. Your Windows will probably throw an activation error. because the Windows activation is actually tied to the motherboard in the computer. So if you replace your motherboard, technically you're supposed to buy a new copy of Windows, which will cost you at least $200. So when you move it, it'll say it needs to be activated. You'll have to call the toll-free number. Usually they give you a mulligan where you say, yes, what did you recently change hardware? Yes, I upgraded my computer to a new, you tell them, like, I had to replace my hard drive. You tell them something simple. You don't tell them you change the motherboard because it's tied to the motherboard. I had to upgrade my hard drive because it crashed. And they say, okay. And then they activate your computer for you. Ooh, excuse me. So that's one thing there. So yeah, totally possible to do that. I wonder if any of those ships left in LA have gone to the Gulf ports. Some of them have. Some of them have departed to sail around. But when you think about it, if you're looking at a 30-day sail to go down to the Panama Canal and back up and around, or a 20-day sail, I mean, you're only saving about 10 days and you're burning a lot of fuel. So you may as well just sit, right? So anyway, it's terrible. So, I mean, that's probably where our Asus laptops are at. That's probably why we can't order Acer monitors anymore. The Scepter ones are good. I mean, that's what we use in the service centers for the tech stations and the monitors on the walls and stuff in a lot of places. They're really good monitors, but they're usually more expensive, honestly. But right now, more expensive is relative. So yeah, if we pay 20 or 30% more for a monitor, we're still selling out every week of monitors. Not to people buying computers, and I don't think I'll take a monitor with that. That's why we usually carry them. These are people walking in the door saying, Best Buy is out of monitors, or the price you're charging is lower than the price Best Buy is charging, so I'm going to come buy them from you. When does that happen? When are we cheaper than Best Buy? We're a high service provider. We're not supposed to be a low cost leader. But we're just, I don't know, we're scrappy. I mean, this goes back to the guerrilla marketing days. I'm scrappy. I do all the purchasing for Schrock. And I look high, and I look low, and I call, and I finagle deals when I can. I try to get everything as cheap as I can get it. If I can order 30 and save 50 cents a unit, I'm going to do it, because I know I'm going to go through 30 of them eventually. That's what I do. And so if people are benefiting from that, and we're getting new customers in the service center, God bless them, because those are customers that we're going to be able to remarket to in the future, even if they just bought a monitor. They're going to hear about antivirus eventually. They're going to hear about the radio show. They're going to hear about all these great things, recycling and everything else we talk about. And they're going to realize that we're a one-stop shop for everything technology. And you can do it at Schrock. So that's good. That's a win for us. So I think we'll just keep selling. We'll keep selling the monitors for that price. All right, guys. Thank you for the compliments. I really appreciate them down here. It's kind of funny. I have the radio show that I used to just do stream of consciousness, right? I just literally sit down. It was a joke in the studio. What are we going to talk about today? I'm like, I don't know. Let's go. Hey, welcome in. What are you guys doing today? Let's talk about, oh yeah, this happened. This popped into my head. Woo. And it was a fun show, but it was not organized. It was not planned. It didn't have a mission. It didn't have a goal. Things that radio shows are supposed to have, you see. Every radio show that you listen to is a produced show with a goal in mind, which is one of the reasons why I can't listen to Sean Hannity anymore. Every show is the same thing repackaged with different news around it. Every day. Democrats bad, Republicans good. Democrats spending, limousine liberals, Learjet liberals. And it's just like, I get it. You're preaching to the choir, Sean. It's like if you say it enough times, people believe it kind of thing. And it's like, stop it. Stop the repetition. That's why listening to Rush was so good. I miss Rush. I miss him so much. He had a core message, and his show was planned. But he got through it with humor. And after you got done listening to Rush after a show, you felt better. You just felt better. I listened to Rush Limbaugh after the last election when Trump lost, because I wanted to hear what Rush had to say about it. And just like when George W. Bush lost to Bill Clinton, George Herbert Walker Bush, I'm sorry. George Herbert Walker Bush lost to Bill Clinton. I remember I was in high school, and my history teacher was like, I brought a box of crying towels for all of you Republicans here today. For Democrats, congratulations on a race well run, that kind of thing. He was being silly about it. And I remember Rush got on, and he was like, listen, This is what happens when you don't do what you say you're going to do. Read my lips. When you play ball with Democrats, that was the message, right? But he did it with humor, and he did it with analogy, and he let them do it to themselves, and then just illustrated the absurdity, and then let you make your own judgments about it. And that's why his show was awesome. So my show originally was completely unplanned, went through. And then, I don't know, 2 years ago, I had a consultant come in. He was trying to get me to hire him. He wanted $80,000 a year to basically tell me how to run my business better. And he was a smart guy. He'd done some good work for other people, some of our competitors even, as I found out later. I didn't hire him because $80,000 is a lot to spend for a year of consulting. Holy cow! For a company our size, for a $2 million company to spend $80,000 on consulting for a year with one person. But he said, let me follow you for a day and let me see what I see, and I'll tell you what I see. And he told me some things, and one of the things he told me was, your meetings ramble. People go down rabbit holes, like you're there for 2-3 hours, and you don't cover the core things of what you came to cover. You really need an agenda. And it's one of those stupid things, like, I know I need an agenda, but, so formal, like, the agenda for the meeting today, So then when I started doing the agendas, the meetings ran so much better, like so much better, like duh. But anyway, they ran a lot better. And I thought to myself, I should have an agenda for the radio show. I bet it would run better. Lo and behold, it did. Then we created the After Schrock. And the After Schrock was my outlet for stream of consciousness where I could just talk about whatever I want, right? Well, turns out half the people watching the After Schrock didn't like everything I had to say, but they were quiet about it. Half the people watching the After Schrock loved everything I had to say, and they were loud about it. So guess what I gave more of? I responded to feedback, right? And then eventually it got to the point where it wasn't really a technology program at all anymore. It was more of a current events show. And I had people tuning in saying, I thought this was an extension of the computer show, but I guess that's not what this is. And then I had a couple people privately email me and say, hey, I love listening to your show, but I get enough politics and stuff throughout the week listening to AM radio. I don't really need it on the weekends too. Fair enough. It's the whole, we don't want the NFL to be a whole political thing because we just want to watch people smash each other, right? We want to see the quarterback get smashed. We want the sack. We want to see him get absolutely destroyed and get up slow. Not because we wish him harm, but because it's entertaining to see grown men in a gladiator-like competition smashing each other, right? So I toned it down a little bit, and I actually started writing agendas for the After Schrock, so I could stay on task. And of course, we get pulled off to the side on different things, and we talk about weird things like Omicron and things like that. But the point of the show here, of the After Schrock, isn't for me to convince anybody of anything. It's just for me to basically provide an extension of the main show, give an outlet for things we don't have time for on the show, and maybe go into depth, a little more depth than we have time for in a 10-minute segment on the radio program, into something like a Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, because there's a lot of people out there who don't know what it is. And I read a great article yesterday. I think I found it on it was either Cointelegraph.com or Zero Hedge. I can't remember which. I read both of them every day. But it basically talked about Bitcoin as the world's reserve currency and what would have to happen for that to happen, and what would that mean for everybody, and that it would be generational wealth. And so I read the article because it said it was going to be Bitcoin is generational wealth. And they're absolutely right. You can pass it on to your kids without getting taxed if you wanted to. And of course, anyone in the U.S. is going to be like, well, you're breaking the law. And you're like, well, laws were made to deal with dollars. Laws need to be changed to deal with crypto if that's what we're going to do. And you can't, handing your money down to your children is like, it's immoral, or, Warren Buffett's not doing it, or, and that's fine. There's, I don't have Bill Gates money. I don't have Warren Buffett money, I'm not talking about giving my kids so much money they wouldn't never have to work a day in their life, and they would have no sense of, that's the absolute worst thing I think you could do to a person. Is there's something that happens to a person when they reach a certain level of success or money or income, and you see this with celebrities a lot. they lose their sense of purpose, so they start caring about stupid stuff because they don't know what to do. They don't have to get up and work. They don't have to worry about how much a gallon of milk costs because they've got more money than God. They don't care. And so you end up just kind of blazing through life without a purpose. And work and the effort you put in and the reward you get from it is a purpose in itself. That's why I told my wife, I don't ever see myself retiring and not working at all. I'm always going to have some side gig going on or some hobby or some, something I'm working at, because if I just quit working, I feel like I would lose my purpose. And, it's like, well, you have children and, there's your purpose. Well, the children will grow up. Then you kind of lose your purpose, right? You always have your children, but, with my son and my daughter, especially because she's special needs, we may have her in our household forever. And my young son, Lou, who's 3, I am going to set those guys up to be as successful as they possibly can be without trying to control what they want to do. If that's setting up 401k accounts for them at the age of 14, that's what I'm going to do. If that's, setting up a trust fund for the family, that's what I'm going to do. If putting Bitcoin in that trust fund so they can have it if I don't use it or don't need it or sell it or whatever, that's what I'm going to do. I think every parent wants to do things for their kids to improve the path that they're on or allow them the resources to achieve or to give them the best chance at the best outcome that they can create for themselves. I think that's totally natural. So when Warren Buffett says he's not giving his money to his kids, he's not giving them like his money, but he already bought them the house and the cars and, the trust fund and everything else. I mean, he's given them some money, but he may be giving a lot of it to charity, but he's not going to leave his kids destitute and homeless on the street in Los Angeles with a drug needle. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's his plan. Same thing with Bill Gates. I don't think his daughter's hurting for money. All right, guys. Got to wrap it up. Beware of wedge issues among politicians, gun control, abortion, health insurance, and the standards of fear the vax, lockdowns. Yeah. Wedge issues are devices that politicians use to keep us at each other's throats. That's true. I actually stopped using for a short time my Facebook account because I realized that the whole vaccine thing, like neighbors were arguing with neighbors over it. Like people that I see across the street on occasion, it's like I just wave at you, and say hi, and and your kids, I give them a birthday gift or something for their birthday or whatever. And when my father-in-law died, my neighbor brought us a big thing of enchiladas. They were delicious. He made them. You're neighbors, right? You do nice things for each other. And here we are fighting on Facebook over something that none of us can control. We're not going to change each other's minds about anything. We're not even having a rational debate. We're just kind of shouting at each other. What's the point? Just disengage from it. So here on the program of the After Schrock, we're going to do a little bit more. That's why the show I feel is a little more structured. But I think the structure looks good. If I'm looking at the viewers are definitely up since we imposed the structure about 2 weeks ago. So, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for being a part of the program. Thank you for being a customer of Schrock. Your business at Schrock Innovations is what makes this show possible. We pay money every week to have this show air everywhere that it airs. And that money comes from the business that you send us from your friends and your family, and of course your business as well. I genuinely appreciate you, and I appreciate everything that you do for our employees and for my family as well. Thank you very much, and I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and I hope you have a great week ahead. See you next week.